Hey, everybody, this is David Bloom with Next TMT. I am here with Steve Shannon, CEO of Swerve TV, which has just introduced Swerve Sports, a free live streaming women's sports channel that's launching in the United States. It's focused just on live streaming. I guess we should start. Steve, welcome. Delighted to have you here. It'd be good to give some folks a bit of context, I think, about who you are, where you came from. You spent 6 years at Roku, sort of turning it into more than just a consumer electronics company before you came to Swerve. So talk about what you learned there and what you brought to Swerve and now what Swerve is trying to do.
Sure. Thanks, David. Thanks for having me on the show. And that's right. I was at Roku, brought in to change the company from a consumer electronics business model into a content-centric business model. So I was responsible for all the content on the platform and building the recurring revenue streams that included the advertising business and the subscription side of the business. I really fell in love, though, with the ad side, the ad-supported side. Subscription side, total brain damage, didn't like it at all. Advertising side was wonderful, fun, easy to build. And so I took some time off, but after doing that, I looked at the whole FAST ecosystem, the free ad-supported streaming television ecosystem, and concluded that sports was kind of the most primitive area, the area most in need of innovation. So we decided to start a fast-oriented streaming platform focused on sports.
You know, I want to just say it. I find it fascinating that sports would be, as you say, the most primitive because it has been the absolute driver of tune in and linear channels, right? The legacy broadcasting cable. It is a thing that everybody's getting involved in some way or another. Why do you think it was sort of behind a little bit? Was it just that it was the fast side just didn't have the live sports as much? I mean, what was the deal?
Well, exactly for the reason you point out that it is the biggest tune-in driver for pay TV. So sports is so important to the pay TV ecosystem that the pay TV ecosystem has been very possessive about it and you don't see a lot of NFL in fast even to this day, right? And our initial channel launch focused on all sports. We were playing every sport we could get our hands on, but we found that the combat sports were just killing it. And part of that is just because combat sport is a much more entrepreneurial ecosystem than the traditional major sports leagues, even though it has become the third most popular sport in the country at this point. And so we saw those numbers and decided to focus on that. And so Swerve Sports became Swerve Combat. And that is our flagship channel now. It's all MMA and boxing, basically. We are the #1 combat fast channel in the country now. We run more live events than anyone. We'll do 300 live events in the coming year. And with the success of that, we were able to launch a second channel, which we kind of resurrected the name Swerve Sports again. But this time, Swerve Sports is purely focused on women.
I guess we'd say the combat area is punching above its weight a little bit here.
Yeah, it's
It's
#1
interesting.
fast.
Yeah, but it's also not, as you say, it's more entrepreneurial, but it's also not as concentrated. UFC and WWE and some of that stuff, they're big, obviously, billion-dollar properties. But there's a bunch of smaller circuits out there that are open to deals and trying something different, correct? And that's been
That's right. It's a really unique sports ecosystem because I mean UFC is obviously very strong and you could even argue dominant. But for combat, for MMA and boxing, it's not a college sport. There's no minor leagues, there's no official minor leagues, there's no college sport. It's completely different. And the way it works is it's regionally based. Most cities have one or two combat sport organizations, MMA usually, and they have local fandom. And these promotions, as we call them, are deeply rooted culturally in their communities, even internationally. You look at places like Japan with sumo, or Mexico with lucha libre, or
Brazil, Thailand.
Thailand with Muay Thai, Brazil with Jiu-Jitsu. These are deeply culturally rooted, and people, when they get to the top of those local promotions, they'll matriculate into the UFC. So Swerve Combat is kind of like the minor leagues or the college football, if you will, of MMA, is the way you could think of us. So if you want to see the rising stars, if you want to see your local promotion, Swerve is the place to do that.
Which brings us to Swerve Sports for the female-centric Swerve Sports relaunch, which I think just happened several weeks ago, I guess now. And this is really an interesting time to do this. It feels like women's sports is blowing up. So we've got the WNBA taking off so much so that the players are empowered now to actually push for higher pay, and they're doing expansions into multiple new franchises, including one in the Bay Area. But we've got the National Women's Soccer League. We've got women's hockey and lacrosse. Obviously, traditionally female dominated sports like gymnastics. The softball has gotten big, I think. So where are the opportunities in FAST for Swerve Sports as it is now relaunched?
Yeah, it's actually pretty similar to Combat in that it is a very entrepreneurial group of organizations, right? These aren't snobbish organizations that are ESPN or the highway type of mentality. They need exposure. They're usually hungry to get that exposure. And the athletes are outstanding and they deserve to make more money. They deserve to get in front of fans. And so that's our goal. There's not nearly enough exposure for them right now for those athletes, and we're happy to provide a platform for that.
Now, it's an interesting thing. I talked to Christy Tanner, who I believe is your chairman at Stream TV conference, probably about a month ago now, a month and a half. And she just dropped a few stat bombs in my little brain that I
Good.
found really interesting about what younger Gen Z audiences are interested in watching. I was not surprised to hear the baseball not way up the list, but I was surprised to hear soccer. Not very much scoring, long games. They want highlights, they want excitement, and then on to the next thing. How does that affect how you cover what you do, how you build programming, given an audience you're trying to reach and their expectations for punchier, higher scoring? Like basketball does great, right? So combat does great because there's lots of action, stuff's going on. But how do you build programming for that sort of sensibility, which is very different from their grandfather or their father sitting there and watching all of a 4-hour baseball game or football game?
Good question. It's an ongoing experiment for sure. We've built a lot of muscles with the Combat channel in terms of showing live, and live is always an attraction no matter what the age, especially in the age of social media, because social media is almost bringing us back to a realm of live because my kids, if they don't watch it live, they immediately know the result via social media. So they don't really want to watch the replay. It's kind of why live is so important and using the social media to make sure folks know that the live is becoming available and they want to be part of that and participate in that community. But soccer, I think, has always been tough in the US, even for any network over any time relative to the other top sports. But we partner with our leagues and we give them a regular slot, hopefully a primetime slot. We invest in that, we market it, we try to build an audience, and then we're very analytical about it. And if after some period of a few quarters, if we don't see that audience building, we have to move on. So the short answer to your question is really analytics, promotion followed by analytics. And we just keep refining and getting better and putting up the content that works. We're very entrepreneurial and kind of experimental about it. We're willing to try just about anything, and then we measure.
It's interesting. I'm looking at a list here of some of the content partners: Athletes Unlimited Pro Volleyball,
Yep.
Athletes Unlimited Pro Basketball, Athletes Unlimited Softball, Women's Football Alliance, Red Bull, Outside, US Cheer and Stunt, which has turned into a gigantic, I don't want to call it business, but sport. Lots and lots of events, starting with all the cheer groups, every like junior high, I think, in America. Freestyle Trampoline Association, King and Queen of the Court, Queen and King of the Court, Professional Fighters League, Invicta Fighting Championships, Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship, and Steel Timber Sports, which I suspect involves chainsaws and axes.
That's right. It's amazing watching a 25-year-old woman chop down a tree in 25 seconds. It's pretty fun.
Well, I've been cut down to size by any number of 25-year-olds in my life, so I understand that feeling. But and very quickly, probably had it coming. But that being said, it's interesting the set of partners you have. Are there areas for expansion, or are you all in a place right now where we're just throwing stuff against the wall with some partners we have to see what works?
Now that we're up and running, they come out of the woodwork. We've got a ton of interest in being on Swerve Sports, and we will put it all up. We will put virtually everything up, and we're able to look at it, and we're very transparent in terms of data and collaboration and marketing with our partners. And we just try to get it to work. And if it doesn't work, then no hard feelings, hopefully on either side. But we do our best. You're right about cheerleading and things like gymnastics and those types of sports stunt will do very well for women. It's at the top of the list. Combat sport is also incredibly popular with women, which you wouldn't expect, but it's really fun to watch some of these promotions like Invicta, which is the USA's #1 MMA promotion for women, but also PFL, BKFC, the rest have a lot of women in them too. And it's just super fun to watch it. And to me, inspirational because it's more important for women to know how to fight in this world than it is for men to know how to fight. And a lot of people will say to me, yeah, I don't like watching women fight. And I find that a little narrow-minded, honestly. I think it's terrific. Women being able to kick anyone's ass within a 10-mile radius. I think it's super cool.
Yeah. Well, it is an interesting time for the fast universe. There's a lot of them out there, but a lot of it is involved with library content. You can access 1950s Westerns until you're really sick of Chuck Cooper. I'm guessing you guys stand out a little bit. How do you all interplay with what you do and with the big, we've got both Fox and ESPN rolling out very expensive SVOD services that are sports dominated or purely sports in ESPN's case. How do you all, does that help you? Is that something that's going to be driving further interest in female sports as they tuck it in among everything else that they do?
I think so, honestly, just because as more money goes into the production of sports, there's just more content out there, and we're able to take advantage of that usually. If for example, you take a particular college conference like the Mountain West, right? And if one of these big media companies decides to invest a bunch of money in Mountain West, that's great because the production values are going to go up, the athletes are going to get more exposure, and there's no way that all of those games are going to be getting broadcast on ESPN or kind of high profile outlets. So we're there to take advantage of these growing sports and show as much as we can for free. In general,
Steve, basically what you're saying is once you have the infrastructure, so much is possible for even you guys, right? Because you've got they can just, it's already there, so they can just kind of pour that stuff into your pool as opposed to somebody else that doesn't have room.
yeah, that's right. And we're in fact starting to work with some of these bigger media companies where if Disney makes a deal for a particular league, they're not going to be running all those games on ESPN probably. And it's not really fair to just bury those games and not to buy the rights for them and then not allow anyone else to show them. It's not good for the league. It's not good for the sport. It's not good for even the media company at that point to be burying these games. So we're able to come in and show the stuff that they're not showing or show what they've showed maybe shortly after the event happened. But, in general, the pay TV ecosystem has been kind of falling apart, right? The cord cutting is accelerating still, and that's the trend that fuels fast. So it's really the decline of pay TV that fuels our business more than anything else. And yeah, there are a lot of subscription services trying to kind of make up for that decline, but at the end of the day, the decline is real and people want free sports. That's where we come in.
Yeah, you're more, I think it's important to realize that FAST in general has become like what basic cable was 10 years ago, from like 92 to 2022. Like in that 30-year era, that was sort of what basic cable was. And now it's sort of shifting off, it's shuffling off this moral coil. And FAST is the new thing, even more 57 channels and something on.
Yeah.
But some real opportunities there. You all are available already. Big Shock on Roku, where you previously was, but also on Free Live Sports, Lights Out Sports, and Zeem. Pluto's picking you guys up. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Anoki, some other platforms are coming later this summer. So is the main goal with Fast be everywhere? Is that it?
Yeah. We have more than 20 platforms for Swerve Combat. I expect most of those to take on Swerve Sports over time. So that's like Vizio and Sling and Fubo and TV brands like TCL and LG and DirecTV, for example, Google TV, Comcast Xumo service. Yeah, we've got a whole bunch of them, and we're continuing to add more all the time.
Well, terrific. Well, I think we'll wrap it up here. This is David Bloom with Next TMT talking with Steve Shannon, the CEO of Swerve Sports and Swerve Combat. Swerve TV, he's CEO of Swerve TV, which has 2 channels. The newest is Swerve Sports, focused on women-centric sports and big in the fast universe and growing quickly. So thank you, Steve, for your time.
Thanks, David.